Okay, so we ended with a transition sentence to the next paragraph, which is going to actually be 2 paragraphs around the soup and salad course. And I'm going to set the scene in the first paragraph, and then I'm going to discuss the disease and the relevance of restoring this castle to give safe haven to patients and their families. So I need to get the guests out of the presentation tent so I can set up the soup and salad course. And during that course is when I'm going to talk to them about this disease and why Corofin Castle would be an excellent refuge for them. The guests take a break to walk around the grounds, join their children, drink cool beverages, and mingle with the experts I have invited. An Irish river dance company performs a charming dance on the stage, and the families enjoy the music, and the children are encouraged to river dance and clogging. After a short time, the children sit with the dancers and visit, enjoying fruit and vegetables, while adults return to presentation tent. As I return to the tent, I see children gleefully dancing and frolicking around the stage area, chaperoned by event volunteers. When the adults return to the tent, they find the tent has been transformed into an elegant dining hall with white linen tablecloths, candelabras, Irish flowers, and ivy framing the tables with charming centerpieces. While the adults dine on corned beef and cabbage soup and Irish pub salad, I tell them about the plans for housing glioblastoma patients. I begin by projecting the image of Paul Roberts on the screen. Now, because this is not a persuasive essay that is trying to get money for the treatment of glioblastoma, instead, it is an essay persuading donors to support a safe haven for these patients. So I'm not going to go into a great deal of detail about the disease and the suffering and so forth. I'm going to make that point a little bit differently. I do give enough information about the disease so that the reader knows what we are talking about. And I copied some information about that, and of course I have it cited where the information came from. With standard treatment, the life expectancy is 11 to 15 months. Paul Roberts bought this land in hopes to restore the castle to help stressed families of these brain cancer patients. This is a beautiful place, Roberts said. It's the families that get affected by the disease more than anything. How do they work through the wonderful world of medical retirement and insurance? How do they reset their lives to this circumstance? Since I've already said that Paul Roberts said that, and I have the article quoted, I don't need to add a citation here if I don't want to. And I'm not going to because I've already cited it several times in several places. And I have it in quotation marks, so I know that it's a quote. Once the castle is preserved and made habitable, Paul hopes that families can travel there to de-stress and maybe even visit the nearby River Clare for some trout or salmon fishing. They could catch their own dinner, Roberts said, chuckling. Houston Chronicle. Now, do you see where these 2 quotes that I have from Roberts are cited here? Instead of citing it each and every time, I go ahead and go down to the last of the quotes. Otherwise, the essay is going to just be too filled with citations. And remember, we don't want anything to disrupt the reader from being able to flow through this material without having to stop every 10 seconds and look at a citation, as long as everything is cited. Saul Fisher, our esteemed philosopher, asks, why Corofin, though? Wouldn't these patients be better served in sanitariums? I thought about Saul's question when Yeats added a question of his own. "'Tis better, methinks." Remember, I have to write it in the style that that person would use. "'Tis better, methinks, to place the patients in structures of modern machines and treatments, lest he be," and now I'm quoting from a Yeats poem, "maundering here and maundering there, emptier of thought than the heavenly circuits of its stars, when the moon sails out." So I added a little bit of poetry in there. And now we've got some problems, don't we? Because we have two people who have raised a question about the validity of this part of the argument. So I, am going to respond to them. I pause for a moment and then speak carefully. In August of 2018, I don't need to put me in quotes, but I do need to let them know that I'm the one that's talking so there's no confusion. In August of 2018, I remark, American patriot John McCain ceased all treatment for his brain cancer. After his landmark Senate vote, months of intense therapy and surgery, he was tired. Knowing that the end was near, wouldn't it have been wonderful if McCain could have taken his entire family to a quiet and lovely Irish castle to relax and smell the fresh air? Paul Foster's doctor wanted more for his patients than relentless machines and family stress. I encourage him to restore the castle. And what he said, what his actual quote is, I encourage him to do it. Well, the reader's not going to know what to do it means, so I've used brackets to indicate what the doctor meant. He meant I encouraged him to restore the castle. It's his passion, Zeus said. I tell patients, don't stay at home and do nothing. That's not life. From the Houston Chronicle. I paused for a long time and let the guests look at the heroic image of John McCain. I break the silence by inviting the children who have been waiting outside the tent with the dance troupe to join the party for the main course. They enter in great fanfare with music playing. They now have hair ribbons for the girls and hats for the boys, and they bring smiles to faces as they dance through the presentation tent. Okay, I need to know, we are moving on to the next course. But what are we going to be talking about next? We've covered the reason why we want to do this is for these patients to have a safe haven. What else do we need to cover in this essay? Let's go back to the introduction. Okay, so we just completed the section that explains why Corofin Castle is a safe haven for glioblastoma patients. Glioblastoma patients. We just need that. Now, we've been talking about fundraising, which we were talking about when we introduced each of the guests, and it ended with Osorio saying that it was going to cost more like $1 million. So what's left for us to do? That's right, we need to bring in the community. So that's going to be the last thing we need to do, is talk about how this project is going to involve the community. So we're going to move on to that section. So I'm going to add that as my transition sentence. It's time to bring the Corofin County Galway community into the conversation. Now the reader knows that we're going to be moving on to the main course, and that during the main course we're going to be discussing the community involvement in this project. And then we're done. So this section, section 4, the main course and entree, we're going to be talking about the food, and we're going to get into the preparation for the entertainment. Of course, the big moment of our evening is going to be the performance of U2. And for this particular thing is what might happen if the ideas don't go through. Well, the patients would find someplace else to be. The project wouldn't be completed, and the castle would move into ruin and ultimately crumble. So, knowing that, we're going to spend the bulk of our time in this section. We're going to adapt it to my topic, and instead of some of these items, we're going to restructure this part of the outline to really bring home community involvement. For now, that concludes our coverage of section 3 of our essay, where during the soup and salad we made an emotional appeal to the guests at this party for the glioblastoma patients. I do really well with saying that. Well, I could have picked a better word that would have been easier to say, but I didn't. So here we go. That concludes this tutorial.